the problems from the 19th Amendment, and women's voting rights. The most uncomfortable civics lesson you will ever read. A proposal nobody has the guts to say out loud, so I will. I have been a combat medic. I've held dying men together with my hands in Iraq. I've worked inner city streets as a civilian paramedic at 3 in the morning, wearing a vest. I have stood in front of classrooms full of kids the public school system had already written off and taught them science while the rest of the world forgot they existed. So when I say what I am about to say, understand it is coming from a man who believes he earned the right to say uncomfortable things. Universal suffrage, the complete separation of voting rights from any obligation to the nation, granting them, has, in my view, contributed to the collapse of the American family. There, it is written. Now put down whatever you just picked up to throw at me, because you are about to make the exact argument I am not making. This is not about women being inferior. It is not about race. It never was. It is about something the founders understood, and something we have spent a century deliberately forgetting. The question was never, should women vote? The question nobody wants to ask is, what should entitle anyone to vote at all? The history they stripped out of your civics class. The 19th Amendment passed in 1920. The suffragist movement that fought for it was, ironically, Republican at its core. Yes, look it up. Susan B. Anthony likely would not recognize the modern political movement claiming her legacy. But here is what your teacher probably never told you. The original structure of the American voting system was not designed around sex. It was not designed around race. It was designed around obligation to the civil body that protected you. 1 vote per household. Not because women were property, but because the family was viewed as the foundational unit of the republic. 1 stake, 1 voice, 1 vote cast on behalf of everyone in that home, all bearing the consequences of how government behaved. The philosophy may have been sound, even where the execution was flawed. And when the country corrected the flaws, it threw the philosophy out with them. That, according to this argument, was the mistake. The idea should have been to expand who could earn the vote. Instead, the requirement to earn it disappeared entirely. And politicians quickly discovered that votes untethered from obligation are incredibly easy to purchase, using someone else's money. What happened next? The data part. Because I am a science teacher, correlation is not causation. I teach that concept to teenagers. I understand the difference. But a scientist does not automatically dismiss a correlation this consistent across 6 consecutive decades. A scientist investigates it. In 1960, the out-of-wedlock birth rate in America was approximately 5%. Today, it exceeds 40%. During that same period, the federal government built an enormous network of welfare programs. Food stamps, Section 8, WIC, TANF, SNAP. The check arrives whether there's a father in the home or not. And in some cases, the structure of those programs reduced benefits if a working father was present. So the argument being made here is this. The government did not merely offer assistance. It financially incentivized father absence. The author says he does not blame women for this. He blames the system, and specifically the politicians who expanded that system, while winning elections through the expansion itself. The people paying into the system were increasingly outvoted by people receiving from it. Quinn's Law number 22 is then introduced. The more dependent people become on government, the more reliably they vote for whoever promises to continue funding that dependency. The argument continues. The government did not accidentally replace the father. It rebuilt the family structure, with the government check at the center, the civil service question nobody wants to answer. Here is where the conversation becomes even more controversial. Men are still required to register for selective service. Women are not. Men fill military combat roles in numbers that are dramatically higher. Men die in law enforcement at much higher rates. Men make up the overwhelming majority of career firefighters and urban paramedics, especially in dangerous jurisdictions. The argument here is that these professions fulfill core state obligations: defense, order, and safety. The founders tied civic participation to civic contribution because they feared what would happen when those two things became disconnected. According to this view, people who bear none of the burden eventually begin voting to increase the burden on people who bear all of it. The writer reflects on 23 years in military and emergency service roles. In Iraq, plugging holes in wounded friends, then returning home to work as a paramedic in Cleveland at 3 in the morning, in neighborhoods dangerous enough to require ballistic protection. And because of that experience, he believes voting should carry some form of obligation. the actual proposal. And according to the author, it has nothing to do with sex or race. The proposal rests on 4 pillars. Pillar 1, the government exits the marriage business entirely. Marriage becomes strictly religious or personal. The state would only recognize civil unions for legal purposes. Property rights, inheritance, hospital visitation, tax status, the bureaucratic mechanics. But the term marriage would belong exclusively to religious or cultural institutions. Pillar 2, 1 vote per civil union household, not per individual, per household. 2 people building a shared life with shared consequences, which share 1 vote. They would decide privately who casts it. No government involvement. In divorce cases involving children, the vote follows primary custody. Pillar 3, voting is earned, not automatic. Who earns it? Military personnel, Guard and Reserve, honorably discharged veterans, law enforcement, career firefighters, emergency medical service providers in documented high-risk jurisdictions. The author emphasizes repeatedly, this is not about sex. A female combat medic earns the vote exactly as much as the man beside her. A male office worker who never served does not automatically earn it. Service is the threshold, period. Pillar 4, 1 vote per primary residence landowner, regardless of wealth, regardless of acreage. 1 vote tied to the primary residence, where a person actually lives, not vacation homes, not investment properties. The argument is that homeowners possess direct financial stakes in taxes, zoning, infrastructure, and regulation. They cannot easily leave without financial consequences. That creates what the author calls skin in the game. And he is explicit about one thing. Wealth does not increase voting power. The single mother who owns a modest home gets the same vote as the owner of a massive estate. 1 person, 1 property-based vote, equal weight. The 3 ways to earn voting rights under this framework: serve the republic, build a family, or establish permanent roots through ownership. The income tax. While I am already in trouble, the 16th Amendment was ratified in 1913. At first, the modern federal income tax affected only a tiny percentage of Americans. The exemptions were high. The rates were relatively low. And according to the argument, it was never intended to reach ordinary workers. Then World War II happened. Payroll withholding was introduced in 1943 as a temporary wartime measure. And like many temporary government powers, it never disappeared. The proposal offered here: the federal government taxes states directly instead of individuals. A flat per capita obligation paid by the states to the federal government. Then each state decides how to raise the money. Income tax, sales tax, spending cuts, whatever citizens are willing to tolerate. The idea is that states would compete for residents through better governance, and the federal government would permanently exit personal financial surveillance. The author argues this idea is not radical, because Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution originally apportioned direct taxes among the states by population. The 16th Amendment changed that structure entirely. The objections: go ahead. I have been waiting. This disenfranchises millions. The response: so do age requirements. So do citizenship requirements. So do felony disenfranchisement laws. Voting rights are already conditional. The disagreement is about which conditions are legitimate. Renters cannot afford to buy homes. The response: the civil service path remains open to everyone, and the civil union pathway exists as well. Then comes another argument. The reason many Americans cannot afford homes today is itself connected to policies repeatedly voted into place. Zoning restrictions, inflation, regulatory costs, affordable housing barriers. The argument concludes: government helped manufacture a permanent renter class, which then votes to expand the same government structures. Women lose the vote. The response: not under this proposal. Female veterans vote. Female police officers vote. Female firefighters vote. Women who own homes vote. Women in civil unions vote. The pathways are described as sex blind. You want the 1800s back. The response: no. The author says he wants the principle behind earlier voting systems expanded differently. The choice, as he frames it, was either expand who could earn the vote or eliminate the requirement to earn it altogether. And he argues the nation chose elimination, the part they really do not want you to read. On January 10th, 1963, Congressman A.S. Herlong read into the congressional record a list titled 45 Communist Goals. The list came from Cleon Skousen's book, The Naked Communist. Several goals referenced weakening family structures, morality, and cultural cohesion. The author says he is not calling everyone who questions traditional family structures a communist. He is instead arguing that the family itself became a strategic target and asking readers to compare the condition of the American family today. Then Quinn's Law number 1 appears. Liberalism always generates the opposite of its stated intent. The argument, policies meant to empower women, instead created dependency on government, while weakening family partnerships between men and women. The statistics return again. Out of wedlock births, 5% in 1960, more than 40% today. Marriage rates at historic lows. Fatherlessness described as epidemic. And the conclusion, the data does not care about politics. The bottom line, strip everything down to the foundation. And this is the core argument being made. Voting should mean something. It should require obligation, not money, not race, not sex, but obligation. According to this proposal, you earn voting rights by serving the republic physically, building a stable family structure, or planting permanent financial roots in the community. 1 vote per civil union household, 1 vote per primary residence owner, no government marriage licenses, no federal individual income tax, tax states directly instead. Will any of this happen? The author says, probably not. Would it require constitutional amendments? Several. Is it politically viable? Probably not. But he argues the conversation matters anyway. Because in his view, the American family is collapsing statistically, demographically, and generationally. And the political system rewarding dependency continues expanding because it creates voters dependent on its continuation. He argues that is not a republic functioning normally. It is a republic consuming itself from within. And he closes with this. You can disagree with every word. That is your right. But you cannot honestly claim the American family is doing fine. If this article made you think, like this article so the algorithm shows it to more people, share it. Every share spreads the conversation further. Comment with your take. Should voting require obligation? Or should universal suffrage remain untouchable? And if you want more discussions like this, the data, the history, the science, and the stories, join Beeski's classroom community on X or follow on YouTube. Subscribe if you want to support the work. The cost is about the price of a cup of coffee each month. And finally, but what do I know? I am only a medically retired Army combat medic, a former civilian paramedic who wore a vest to work in Cleveland, and a science teacher who spent a career watching bad policy land on the children nobody else wanted to teach.